Today's episode is brought to you by CopySite. Most AI creators have no idea if their output is too close to something protected, and that's exactly where things get expensive. CopySite is an IP detection tool that scans your AI-generated content and flags potential copyright conflicts before they become problems. If you're shipping creative work professionally, this should be in your toolkit, and it's free for Machine Cinema members. Promo code is in the show notes. Also, this episode is brought to you by Flick. If you've ever had 5 AI tools open at once, re-explaining a project to each one, Flick is built for you. It's a generative computer for creative professionals. Text, image, video, and audio in one system that actually remembers your context across sessions. Not a chatbot, not a general purpose tool, built specifically for the kind of work our community does. Check it out at the link in the show notes. Obviously, I know you because you've been a big part of our Machine Cinema New York community, and I'm excited for people to get to know you on that level. But just to kind of revisit some of the other most important things, you're an award-winning AI filmmaker, you're a creative director, creative technologist, and a storyteller who's been using satire and horror to explore power and identity and systems that are shaping culture. With over 15 years in advertising and politics, Tiffany has led and shaped campaigns spanning Super Bowl spots to presidential elections, before shifting your focus to rethinking how stories get made with generative AI. And now you're working both as a storyteller and a developer, and you've been designing AI-native production systems and creative agents for networks and ad agencies, building new ways to develop, visualize, and iterate on ideas. And you're also a founding member of Machine Cinema New York City, which is some of the things I'm most excited to get people to learn about. And you host events with Microsoft, Zero Space, and the Fearless Artists. I'd love people to meet you and get to know kind of your origin story, but also it's really exciting. I'd love for people to hear what you've been building in New York and also how this has translated into your personal work.
Machine Cinema NYC started, let's say, the end of 2024. Justin Suarez, who I believe spoke last year, was like the OG of the group. He recruited me and a couple of other people that might be in the group now. And then as we started building, like you mentioned, men came, kind of set the tone with the gin jams and the gin and juices. And from there, we just been building. And we started off with 6 people, and now we're almost at 500. So our goal is to throw an event every month to keep the momentum. Everyone is just really cool. Everyone's loving, no egos. And we have our regulars, which is great.
It's so cool because, I mean, obviously LA is where Min and I kind of got started, and in some way we were organically going back to his stomping grounds and in San Francisco. But yeah, Justin definitely helped put up the bat signal. But I really think New York, first of all, I lived in New York for 17 years, so I have a real personal passion and excitement to see something that a place that I used to call home and sort of always will call home, being a big hub for us. But it's been truly organic. It's been really the beating heart that you and Justin and Jelena and Ia and a handful, now Alan Title, there's a few other people that I just keep seeing showing up, and they show up, step up.
Yeah, let me call them out because they've been helpful. Karen does a work in progress salon. Julio teaches during our Gen Jams, and Julius, who just shouted me out, he MCs our event. He's our comedian.
Okay, maybe that's what we're missing now.
It's a group of us, very loyal.
No, but it's been so cool to see, and I wonder, I do think it's interesting how this act of starting a Machine Cinema Hub almost taps into what's unique about that city. I mean, we feel it very acutely with LA and San Francisco. I sense it in New York City. Having popped out to, you're obviously very aware of what's going on in California and the 2 other hubs. What do you think might be unique to New York? What do you feel differently? What kind of a community, creative community, maybe entrepreneurial community?
So I would say it's the hustle. Like, we're always going. That's just a New York thing. So because of that, once I feel like people started to adopt AI, there was just a constant need to keep it going and to keep hosting the events because people was just craving it. So like our last Gin and Juice, we had 350 people registered. We got in trouble, but that's a big number for us, and I'm very proud of that.
It is cool. I do envy the sort of the go out and grab a drink culture of New York. In LA, it's a little bit harder to get people to, I got to drive home. It's a little bit lamer here in LA on the sort of let's get together crowd, but we do our best. New York, people show up. I mean, also, I think about that intersection of how big the fashion industry is, just the design industry, the agencies are so heavily centered there. It does feel like its own. Have you noticed, even in these 2 years that you've been building this community, what do you sense is starting to get noisier? Like, here in LA, we pay a lot of attention to the way Hollywood FOMOs in, or Hollywood starts to pay attention. What is there something unique to the New York version of that?
I would say most of our members are TV, came from TV, the whole BET, Paramount, that pipeline, which is great. There's a lot of finance bros that show up, which is interesting. I would like to see more comedians, more Broadway folks, but fashion, you mentioned, there's not a big fashion scene within our group. There are some people, and maybe that's why we need, a Gen Jam to reach out to fashion people or theater people and stuff like that, those communities that really represent New York.
And on a personal level, how do you feel? I mean, I've already, besides the demographics, and we've called out April Fools as its failure today. Just as a creator, what spaces are you also identifying with? Is it technology first, creative second, or do you come from a fashion instinct? Like, where has this spoken to you as a creator, and even like your immediate community?
So for me, filmmaking, probably because I wanted to transition my advertising career to screenwriting, and then writer strike, yada yada, didn't happen, so the twos came out. So my heart is in stories. I want to tell stories. I want to tell human stories using AI. So that's where my heart is. Advertising is more where my tech sides come in, building agents for agencies to help them with mostly their social media or their storyboarding, but that kind of stuff. But stories is it for me.
And if we all get to dream a little bit, where are you sort of imagining your opportunity? Again, I'm always interested in you first as a creator. Is this your pathway to like where it was hard to make a feature-length film, or is it about really owning a web series and sort of a YouTube channel? What do you sort of strategize? Where's your sort of ambition going, and where do you see opportunity?
So I tell people I want to be the Tyler Perry of AI cinema, because he started from not Broadway, but those theaters, kind of homemade theater shows that he would sell on the block, his tapes, and then he grew it to the empire that he had today. And I feel like I could do that with AI, so that's my trajectory. So any jobs that I take, as far as whether it's filmmaking or building tools, has to kind of flow into what I'm trying to build long term.
Amazing, and I'd love to. And by the way, I know we invited a lot of New York crew today. As much as you're a face of the New York crew, if people want to hop up and echo any of these sentiments and join in, that's what we're here for. But so I think that the same trick of inviting yourself up, but I might hold off as we keep going with Tiffany. Maybe we'll save that to the end of Tiffany. Really loved seeing that Nvidia announcement and just what that represented. Can you, and I'll pull it up so we can, or unless you want to pull it up. Do you want to screen share it, or should I?
You try, because you're more of an expert with this Riverside thing. I don't want to mess anything up. But
okay, let me see.
Share, it's Nvidia Real 2 first. Yep. And just to give everyone some background, I'm part of a collective called Black Women in AI. So Bianca Pryor spoke a few weeks ago. She's part of that. Ia Robinson, who helps me with New York, is a part of that. So the three of us, along with like Min and Juliana, I found we're all out there. We had the opportunity to build and deploy a AI product or service and present it in front of NVIDIA, and that's how we were able to go to GTC this year. So what I built, did it real. So 2 years of my AI work is what I put together, I assembled together for this reel, which Fred is gonna play. And then I also show them, because what I realized in talking to a lot of people at NVIDIA, one, we don't exist. No one knows that there are all these AI creators and filmmakers that are using the tools to create art. And then aside from that is the other thing that I realized is, oh, okay, this is how we're playing it. Okay, cool. And the other thing I realized is people don't understand that we build agents and tools to help us tell the stories and build art from it. But I feel like I'm gonna stop talking so you can play the reel.
I'm letting it play without audio so it doesn't interrupt you. Maybe give us some context. What was this meant to
Yeah, so this
display?
this is all my work for 2 years. So you see the true crimes work that I did with A&E. You'll see some meta work that I did with their social media platform. Some test shots are in there. One of my first projects was in 2024 where I just posted online this animation that's in there. Like you mentioned earlier, my work leans towards satire and horror, so there's always a darkness to what I show. So that's all that's in here. But you could see the evolution of the tools in this piece, which was a good talking point for when I was presenting to Nvidia as well.
What an incredible moment. I mean, did you ever imagine, was that an obvious stepping stone for you 2 years ago to be presenting at NVIDIA?
No, and I have
All of us are
to.
having such weird rides, yeah.
Sorry, I missed the last part of that.
I said all of us are having such amazing rides. Like, what an incredible
Yeah,
moment,
yeah. No,
I would say, but yeah.
yeah, I owe everything to Ia. Ia went last year, and she was like, "It's the most unbelievable place on earth," and she told me I need to go, so I joined Black Women in AI, and then I got to go this year. But going back to NVIDIA, it really was, Bianca said it best, like you're in the spaceship to the future because you get to see what's coming. OpenClaw was a big deal, which I know we've spoken on in these calls. But to see for me how other industries are using AI is insane to me. And I was so overstimulated and so inspired when I left NVIDIA that I just went right to work. So I haven't even posted about anything as far as what I learned and got from NVIDIA because I just went to work. So I started, getting my certificates with Anthropic. And then NVIDIA offered some free certificates, so I'm going to do that next. But right now, I'm so inspired to build. So that's where I'm at. That's what stuck with me with NVIDIA.
Well, it's so cool. I mean, I do feel like so many creatives this year, and I think we were talking about Claude before, OpenClaw, it's hard to ignore it. Like, it's all of a sudden, all of us have skipped that, like, oh, I don't need to know how to code bridge, and people are building. I think that idea is very interesting. I'm really, really interested to see where this takes a lot of people that maybe previously identified as creatives and are now builders. I mean, just to kind of come back to the underlying component of this, this sort of Black women in AI. I don't think it's a big, sort of controversial talking point of, how disproportionate representation is at this early stage of this new hugely impactful space. As much as there's this notion of self-organizing and taking advantage of moments like this and platforms, what sort of are some maybe, I mean, I think it's easy to focus on the criticisms, which I would say at least the beginning of them are obvious, of disproportionate representation, but what are maybe some goals that you guys are finding?
So there's so much opportunity. It's an emergent tech. There's not a lot of us that use it for art. So it's almost like you could create your own lane. And like you mentioned, my path, like there's no obstacle for me. So like, why not listen to my friend Ian who's telling me to sign up for Black Women in AI so I could go to NVIDIA. Granted, like I've built some tools prior to that, and that's why I said I was really inspired to kind of go deeper into building tools. But the sky's, I hate to say this, I'm a writer, the sky's the limit. Like there's nothing I can't do.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are drinking from that well this year. I mean, if I don't know, maybe these are your own version of NDAs of the things you talk amongst yourselves of your goals, but is there like some notion of like an anthology series that focuses on Black female creators? Is there some kind of company in the works? Like, I'm just curious, like, how do we, when we can suddenly start a company with, with one Mac Mini or whatever it is that OpenClaw has made possible? I don't know. I'm curious what ambition looks like in these new times.
So for Black women in AI, and I'm just a member. I don't want to speak on Angel's goals with the group, but I believe the group has been around for 5 years, and it's really just a place to find a shared space and elevate Black women. I don't know if I could speak on the long-term goals, but the goal is to keep building and keep showing up. I think that's all I could say. Oh, you're muted.
Some version of an NDA, as I get it. We're all getting used to that. No, I appreciate that, and I think I also appreciate how much you, Ia, and Bianca are also putting work forward as a way to advance those ambitions. I think all of you are doing incredible work day to day. And also just to kind of focus on your creative work. I mean, I'd love, you sent me a piece that I'd love to
Yeah,
give
this,
people a look at it. I'm going to bring it up right now. Do you want to watch it first because it has some audio and then
well,
we talk
well,
about it?
let me say a little something really quickly. It's my love letter to my time at Nvidia.
So cool. I love that so much. Obviously, lots to unpack, a lot of questions about the technicals. Was that sea dance? But maybe let's start with you said it was your love letter. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so again, back to being equally overstimulated and inspired, I wanted to show the women that I went with, which was the women of BW and artificial intelligence. Also, show some love to the NVIDIA folks that had us, hosted us there. So that's really what that was about. The chip, the spark was a big deal. Obviously, that wasn't the spark, that was a chip. I didn't get to meet Jensen, but somebody in that group did, and he doesn't want to say anything. I won't call them out. And pretty much just the back to the inspiration of being there, which, Pixar and me took off and then met with the women, and then the Red Lobster was the representation of Open Claw, and then what's to come next.
So cool. And then some basic questions like, was that sea dance or what tool did you use for that?
Yeah, so that's Sea Dance, Kling, and then Luma.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
The usual milkshake.
Right,
That I
right.
was working on. Very cool. And sorry, is animation and that space a big target for you? I mean, your reel showcased so many other styles and aesthetics.
Um, I'm open because I love doing both. It was just at the time one of the things you could play with at Nvidia was a toy Jensen. So I would show you the board, but everyone could take a picture of you with toy Jensen, and all the women in that group shared their pictures. So that's how I was extracted all the characters from them. So there was already a little bit of an animation look between there, but I also like doing the realism because it's challenging. So.
Sure. I think I saw Bianca in the cast.
Yeah,
Was
Bianca
Ia,
and Ia were in there. Yeah. Bunch
any
of
other
them. Those
who
are
were
the
the
only
others?
two MC folks. Maybe
Okay.
they'll join. Maybe they'll join after this.
Well, obviously, if anybody from the group, the Black Women in AI group, or even relevant to this, if you guys want to hop up on stage and talk a little bit more about some of the topics today.
Or NYC, because I saw Mike Trainer. I definitely want to shout out Mike Trainer, who does our museum jams.
Yeah. No, it's been incredible to watch what you've been personally leading and building, and we're so proud to have you. Any questions or announcements you would send back to the community? Like what should we know? How can we all help more in New York City? When's the next Gen and Juice that we can all crash and get you
Ooh,
more
okay.
stuff?
So we have a museum jam coming up, I believe, around the end of April, early May. Same with the work in progress with Kieran. But our next Gin and Juice will probably be May or June. We want to do a rooftop, so we gotta wait for the weather to be nice. But it'll be everything's get posted into the NYC WhatsApp group.
Awesome. Well, obviously, please reshare the link here for everybody for people when they're in New York, they can say hi and jump into the group chat. No, I mean it's been so cool, and I think we had Bianca on a while back. I've been wanting to get Jolene on here. She has so there's so many New York voices that are underserved, and I'm at least starting with the hubs to get them in here. But please nominate yourselves, New Yorkers, as we try to make space to hear from everybody. But very cool to have you today, Tiffany. And I mean, anything we should know about what's next for you as a creator? What's your next film you're working on, or how do we follow you on the socials?
So LinkedIn is probably where I post the most. I post a lot of slop on Instagram, so don't bother. I would say so. So right now it's my certifications in building tools, and then creatively a microdrama, which
All
I've been
right,
working on for a minute now. So
jumping in. We're all gonna make that microdrama money.
right.
Very cool. I love that. Tiffany, you're a star. Thank you so much for everything you've been doing. Me and Min are so proud of what's happening in New York, and it's as much it's everybody's thing that's happening there. So you've been such a great leader, and everybody you mentioned today. Thank you to all them. If it's okay, I'm going to bring up Daniel Roberts next. Again, I hope my kids screaming in the background aren't distracting too much. By the way, I think they finally left the room. But thank you, Tiffany. We'll be in touch very soon.
Bye.
Daniel, thanks for helping us in your IT department for our Riverside call today. But I'm going to remind people who you are a little bit. You're the CEO and co-founder at Alchemy, which you're going to tell us a lot about today. You lead design, product, and development and content strategy. And prior to that, you were an entrepreneur in residence at Sandbox Industries, and you founded Scout Alarm, which you ran as a CEO and lead designer for 10 years. And you remain on the board, and you have a master's in design from the Institute of Design at the Illinois Institute of Technology. But obviously, all of that builds up to your place in the space that we're all kind of having fun Connect Weekly here on Gen Talks. Tell us about yourself, but Alchemy, and obviously lots of questions to learn about distribution platforms. I think that's the big headline
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me, and awesome talk with Tiffany. I am here in Chicago, so it's cool to learn about what's happening in other cities. I don't want to spend a ton of time introducing Alchemy, but I want to give you just a flavor of what we do. I think with all the creators that we might have on today, there's some opportunities to collaborate. But we got started about 18 months ago. And the thought behind Alchemy was that AI video is just going to create this Cambrian explosion of original content. And we think that, voices that haven't been heard before are now going to be able to be heard. And a lot of the stuff that we see coming out of Hollywood that can be somewhat repetitive and, sort of focused on profit. I'm really excited about giving the tools and everyone having the tools to tell their original stories. And I think it's going to be a really interesting time. But we looked at the space and we said, hey, there's not a great way to distribute if you do have an amazing piece of content or, episodic series or movie. YouTube demonetized AI content. The idea that you can go sell to Netflix or Hulu is probably possible for some small subset of the creators, but there's a lot of detail in that, right? Copyright, they have their own teams. And so we wanted to create a place for people to distribute on the big screen without, those gatekeepers. And so that's why we created Alchemy. Alchemy is a streaming application. It's on Roku and Apple TV. Anyone that's interested in checking it out, just search it in the Apple TV or Roku app stores. You can download, watch, it's free. There are some ads on some content, but by and large, there are not. And we work with over 125 creators that publish their content up to Alchemy. We do watch everything that comes on board. Oh, you got my website up for me. Thanks, Fred. Um, we uh, we do watch everything that comes through, and we're doing things to try to empower creators. So we are a little bit different from some of the other streaming platforms out there. We have this idea of searching by mood. So we have playlists of multiple creators where you can choose a mood that you want to be in or that you're currently in and watch that way. We have a brand new music section. So you see in that second little bit there, Fred, there's the entire Sony music video catalog plus the Orchard and Fuga is all up on Alchemy. So we're trying to mix, sort of established musicians and artists alongside up and coming creators. We think that's a really cool way to draw people in and cross pollinate what's happening in the AI community with what's happening, in the more traditional production space. And then we also have brand new. It's a little hard to show a TV app on Riverside, but we do have a brand new creator section. So if someone wants to watch something just from one creator, they can pop on there, sort by creator, watch an episodic series straight through. So we're really trying to highlight what creators are doing and give creators a place to bring their audience. So yeah, it's great to see the trailers on TikTok and Instagram. It's fun on your computer on YouTube. But what's really awesome is seeing it on the big screen in your living room for hours on end. Last thing I'll say, we're also doing channel partners, something that I'd love to explore with Machine Cinema and any of the different city collectives that are happening. But we have channel partners where folks are fashioning their own curated 24/7 channel, and we're featuring that. So AI Music Video Show is one of our first channel partners. We're really curious, what else we can do in that world to give folks a place to consistently distribute to their audience on the big screen.
Super cool. I mean, obviously, lots of questions. I think you get a lot of creators here that think a lot about distribution. I think just today there was a big announcement from Fairground, who are, we have a great relationship with those guys. We've heard from the folks at Escape. I mean, just to, kind of zoom into one talking point, that we had when we were connecting before of just like why going to TV, versus a web app, why Roku and Apple TV? Like, why is that a strategic thing? And why does that feed into what you think is better for the creators?
Yeah, look, I think that we think, and again, obviously everyone has different watching styles, and there are people that are sort of laptop native, so they're just going to watch YouTube or whatever streaming platform on their laptop. But by and large, especially for sort of the target audience we're going for from a viewer standpoint, they're watching 3+ hours of their entertainment time on the TV. So whether that's the traditional Netflix, Hulu, or they're loading up YouTube on their TV. That long form consumption is happening on the TV. And so not to put down anything else that other companies are doing, we just think the harder challenge is to get people interested on one device. So you're on your phone, you see a trailer on TikTok, looks amazing. Getting someone to then hop to a different device and take action there is difficult. Whereas on the web, you can kind of click through and watch. But by and large, a lot of people are on streaming apps on their TV. A lot of times are on both devices, right, in modern society. So we just think that is the native sort of entertainment experience. And especially as AI content expands, length, it's been difficult to produce at length. Now that it's expanding in length, we think it's just natural to be on your couch, with your partner and just watching TV.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I assume there's lots of questions in our crowd here, so please drop them in the chat, or let's bring you guys up. I think there's a lot of it's a very hype-full year. There's a lot of noise, a lot of people starting businesses. A lot of people like to play the blank of blank, where it's like the something of Pixar, and you can't throw a rock too far to hear people comparing themselves to Netflix. As we think about distribution, and as people obviously try to raise against these ambitions, what is your take on that sort of like the AI Netflix angle, like and how are you creating a different business structure for creators and for yourself? Like what sort of is your vision on that front?
Yeah, I think it's a tough sell, AI for, AI Netflix. I think, in my view, and I know I love this back and forth debate, so no one knows what's going to happen. So by all means, let's have the debate. But in my view, the AI Netflix is going to be Netflix. They have access to these tools, they have incredible resources, but most importantly, they also have hundreds of millions of viewers already there. So to the extent that they want to employ AI into their productions or buy productions that were made with AI, they're going to do that. They have the resources, they have the distribution. And so, in a lot of ways, when I think about where Alchemy is heading, I think it's twofold. Like, we really want those original stories to come through that are different from Netflix, right? That you can't necessarily get. I do think Netflix has very specific monetary goals that they have to adhere to, like that may limit, certain niches of content. So I'm really interested in the originality that goes outside of it and addresses large pockets of audiences that maybe the traditional streamers don't address. And so a lot of Alchemy's content is more sort of lean back, tune out, expecting people are on two screens, thinking about ambient content. You see the music videos up there. So we're just taking a different approach where we think that's outside of the realm of what a Netflix or a Hulu or a YouTube TV wants to broadcast. But we think there's massive audiences for that. So, I'll be excited if there is sort of an AI Netflix that usurps, traditional Netflix. But that's not our focus. And then the last thing I'll say on that is that I think there's a period of time where, making linear video cheaper and faster, like going after AI Netflix is an interesting strategy. But I also think that it's somewhat fleeting in the sense that I think AI can bring entirely new entertainment experiences about. So that's why we wanted to own the platform. You could imagine real time AI avatar entertainment experiences. You can imagine open world models, traversing those, telling a light story arc. I think like where we take entertainment as a next step is actually more interesting than just linear video, cheaper, faster. Again, that's going to have an amazing moment, I think, for creators, originality to come through. But I think really pushing the boundaries on what entertainment means is the really interesting long-term play.
I think a lot of people agree with you. Let's say more. Like how does I guess until I understand it better, how does a linear distribution platform contribute to new types of experiences?
Yeah, well, one thing that I love to do is sort of an open world, real time open world narrative, and so in some sense, one of the things that we've found in our research is people don't love to touch the remote. So I'm thinking about an open world streaming real time to the TV that has a narrative or a story arc that you're traversing through without you having to do anything. But if you want to, with your remote or other, controls, you could move about this world, engage with new characters. All of it sort of pulling back to a narrative or a storyline that is cohesive, but just giving people the exploration piece of that. I think that's really interesting. I think about some of like the historical events, like if you could go back, pick your time period, pick your historical figure, and alongside a story, if you could chat live with, an AI chatbot essentially that's been trained, but you have this avatar it's speaking to you. Again, these are probably very dumb, very nascent ideas of where AI native entertainment can go. And I think we'll learn a lot more about that in the coming years, but we're really excited to just prototype those things, iterate them, and push the boundaries of what it means to tell a story, what it means to be entertained.
I mean, super interesting. I mean, I think so many of us are playing on that idea of like there must be something original coming. I mean, in terms of like, how do you look at yourself in that? I mean, there's a bit of a mini rush, as you say, like Netflix will be Netflix, and that nobody's going to supplant them. And I suspect you could have that same sentence with YouTube. But the instinct that there's this world of creators that are looking for distribution homes. We mentioned it before, Fairground and Escape and Rad TV. Whether it's very literally calling them competitors or just saying that people with great minds thinking alike, what do you think is sort of the journey everybody and how are you even differentiating yourself? How does
Yeah.
everybody meet, viewers who maybe don't care how the sausage is made? They just want to watch something interesting. Or are we trying to create a culture of people that specifically want AI content?
I think that's right. I think viewers don't care. And, I've been in the startup game long enough that like all of the folks you just mentioned are nascent enough companies that we should all just be supporting each other, right? Like sharing creators, whatever can drive audience both to our platforms, but also to creators, I think is overall beneficial to everyone. And we shouldn't really think of it as pitting it as like us versus Escape, us versus Rad. It's really like the traditional, Netflix, Hulu, like that is who has distribution, who has the power. We are collectively up against that, and it's sort of the onus is on us to push forward, this idea of creator originals and building out audiences around AI content. And so, in a lot of ways, especially with like AI music video show, like we have Sony music videos on our platform. We're also featuring them. Like we don't see it as a battle between traditional and AI generated material. It's more about like, no, it's all amazing. We want to celebrate creativity and originality. Let's bring all of that together. And I think there's more than enough pie. If you look at YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, like there's a big pie, right? There can be, and there are in the traditional space, many players that have a reason to exist. Everyone will take their slightly different angle, but I've just been around long enough that startups pitting themselves against one another is just a losing battle. So I don't see it that way.
So I worked in cable TV, which was what some legend of distribution from the times of yore. But living inside that business, we did live in some version of a competitive landscape of, oh, I wish I had that show, or like, oh, that's the type of thing that would have really pushed us over the edge. I think about, and I've now seen it pop up in a bit of mainstream chatter, like this Fruit Island show on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a show that's got millions of views. It's obviously not, that helps to be on a platform that is as widely consumed as TikTok in the first place. But like, are you entering a phase of this year that you're looking at a Fruit Island and say, oh, that could have been us, or how do we acquire that, or how do we work with that creator? Because at some point, that is the distribution game to the extent that you're going to attract, either subscribers or advertisers. You're trying to get a hit. That sort of puts you on the map. Like, how do you look at Fruit Island specifically, and how do you day to day see what's going on in the space?
Yeah, we watch everything. It's interesting. I was talking with Kim here in Chicago, who heads up the Chicago AI Film Fest. So we're looking at film festivals. We're looking at Curious Refuge, Machine Cinema. We're looking at everything, and then we're also consumers of TikTok and Instagram. So when something interesting pops up, we're tracking that down, and sometimes it can be hard to track down creators and get their attention. But no, we're not. Again, I think if you chase the flavor of the day, and I know that vertical soaps or whatever you want to call them are kind of the flavor of the day. If you're not building that with a passion, right? If that content is not what you're interested in, is not what you're passionate about writing, then I think you're going to fall short of someone who is. And so we're looking for creators who have just an authentic vision of what they want to create. We do create some of our own stuff internally, but that is focused on like what we think is interesting. We do check the world and see like, hey, is this topical? Is this likely to hit? But we have to be interested, because if you're not interested in that, if you're not passionate about it, like if it's just a money play or like a hit game, like you lose something. And I think that we're going to see different flavors of the day in content styles come and go, and that's all well and good. My hope is just between us internally, the creators that we work with, that we can create some great pieces. I think here's the thing is, I think the challenge is, and you watch Fruit Island, nothing against it, it's getting millions of views, but it's not a cinematic piece of art, right? What I think we have to combat today is the general population's perception of AI content as being slop, right? Like people have to start making great stuff. And so there's going to be one hit moments for things like Fruit Island. Again, nothing against it. It has a purpose. It's entertaining. But I just think like our challenge is going to be, if we want to cross that chasm, is like we have to make amazing original content. And that is about story. That's about removing someone from noticing if it's AI or not and just being engaged with the story.
I hope you're right, and I don't mean to be combative on this, but because I came up in reality TV, like we went through our own
Yeah.
phase of being a new space in the early 2000s. We didn't have the word slop to refer to it. I think most people called it
Right.
trash. And I working in it, I think eventually we developed the nuance that there was a difference between doing a show about drug addiction and intervention and doing a show about Jersey Shore. A spectrum emerged
Yeah.
in a genre, and I guess I think it's interesting to hold the bar up to sort of like overcome slop. But I don't know. Personally, I wonder if Fruit Island is it, everybody talks about Italian brain rot and just sort of this sort of sub thing that some of our kids understand better than us. But I'm just saying, I don't know. I do wonder if it will succeed by doing its own thing rather than having to impress anybody. But that
Absolutely.
could just be my impression. I could be totally wrong about that.
Absolutely. Well, let me clarify this. That I think, like, as a designer, I think a lot about like what the audience wants and what they're trying to do. So one of the reasons that we sort by mood on Alchemy is that a lot of people, if you hop on Netflix or Hulu, they'll search 10, 12, 15 minutes trying to find something and then they settle, right? Which is a frustrating experience, right? And there's a bunch of reasons for that. In a lot of ways, it's like, hey, I know how I want to feel. Just get me into the experience. And so that's what we're trying to do with Alchemy is sort of put people in a mood that they're already in or that they want to be in and go that way. So the reason I say that, Fred, is like there's a place both for reality TV and for Fruit Island in the sense that we see the behaviors of audiences. Like sometimes I just want to shut my brain off, right? Like I'm doom scrolling. I know it's not good for me, but it's like tuning out the world. And that has a real like user moment purpose that I don't expect high cinema or amazing art, but it's helping me just like shut it out. Or maybe I'm on both devices. So with reality TV, I don't have to focus. So all those things have a place. And I think for anyone who's passionate about creating them, more power to them. And really think about it in a what's the user trying to do mode. Everything has a purpose, otherwise it wouldn't be successful. And so I'm not saying don't do anything that's not high concept original art, but I am saying like do what you're passionate about and
Sure.
maybe not sort of ride the waves because they're going to come and go.
Super interesting. I mean, I think the streamer business is very different than like the linear business I come from. But at some point, it's about research and data, and sort of then whether it's placing bets of literal programming money or just where you're driving branding towards. I think Fairground just I think did a big push into true crime, which is a pretty safe, obvious bet for the sort of and good for them. And I think a lot of people are betting on true crime and AI. Just in that category of whether it's called placing bets or choosing your focus programmatically, do you at all play with like synthetic audiences? Like the notion of like in terms of like finding the research that implies that this mood is a good one to focus on, as you were saying before. Maybe that's getting into the weeds of your NDA process, but go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. No, we've looked at some of that. We've not played extensively with synthetic audiences. Obviously, we get the data coming in from our platform, and we chop that up in a bunch of different ways to figure out what we should do. But what I'm more interested in is sort of the real world audiences. So, for instance, we use social extensively to sort of vet concepts. So on TikTok and Instagrams, we're constantly putting up experiments that maybe 30, 60-second clips or a trailer. Say, hey, we think this is interesting, but like, is this something people will respond to? And just put it out in the world. It's not highly produced, but it's like, is our audience interested in this particular genre of thing? And then if we get back after 10, 12 videos in a category that like, oh yeah, like we got millions of views across those 10 videos. Now it's like, hey, there's something here. And maybe we're not going to put the long form thing on TikTok or Instagram, but we can preview, promote it there. And then now we're going to go create for our streaming network, the long form version of that. And so that's how we're testing is actually on real world audiences. We've grown quite a bit on TikTok and Instagram. So anyone that wants to check it out, at alchemy.stream on both. And I also wanted to mention, I know we're getting close. Anyone that wants to reach out, if you're a creator that wants to publish on Alchemy, we do have some tools that we're using if you wanted to beta test those. Dan at alchemy.stream. If you want to hit me up, feel free to publish that to Fred, because we just want to engage with people.
Please drop it in the chat. I mean, look, we love anybody that's trying to get workout. And again, I'm excited about just the spirit of everything you've said, of like, you want creators to feel heard, and you're giving them a space. And I think and in some ways that is the narrative of YouTube, right? That in some ways YouTube found a way to interact with people where they are, to help them build their own audiences and their own community. So that would be the greatest outcome here. I think people like Blacklight that we've had on here before preach from that gospel of just like, you got to build your audience, and you use the channels that are available to you. I'm also just curious about businesses like yours, how you compete in it, and I think you've been really eloquent about it. If anybody has any questions, jumping in. I mean, I'm just scrolling through chat. Chaz, if I've missed any questions, let me know. But if anybody wants to come up and inquire about distribution strategies, this is a great setting for that. Someone was mentioning before, it's funny, there's a bit of everybody often loves the choose your own adventure when we talk about new experiences. Netflix took a stab at it amazingly 8 years ago with Bandersnatch.
Yeah.
And using the Black Mirror franchise. I've heard mixed results, and I think it speaks for itself that they only did it once. But a lot of people love choose your own adventure. And is that the type of interactive thing that AI is here for, of things that are a bit more, creating that real-time experience, perhaps?
Yeah, one of the things we're experimenting with, like, I'm really curious about the creator or the studio having a point of view of what the story should be, and allowing a user to move through it in a way that's interesting to them, and always coming back to this core narrative. And so one of the things you'll see from us later this year, we're going to do a series of 3 short films, and they all have the same characters, the same ending, but sort of the traversal through the story, sort of act 2, and the other characters at play are going to be different. And also the visual style is going to be different. And I think that's something you can only do with AI. So it's like, we're at the very early stages of experimenting with what a next generation entertainment experience looks like. And it's probably nothing like what I described today. But I think those early prototypes, those iterations, what we get back from the audience will inform how we push it forward. And of course, the models, the capabilities are going to keep expanding. So what we think, based on what we know today, is going to be possible, and then what is actually possible a year to 5 from now, probably very different things. And I think, everyone's been talking about AI in general, just stay adaptable, right? Like, keep that creative core, keep your passions, but be adaptable to, new ways to tell stories, because I think we're going to have a lot of opportunities to try new things in the coming years.
I see John has a question, but I wanted to jump in really quickly, John, and follow up to this, if you don't mind. Just connecting the dot even to Tiffany right before. Just clearly, there's a moment of representation of creators and entrepreneurships, but is there an idea of even like, is there such a thing as a community within a distribution channel like Alchemy that even wants to speak directly? I mean, it's kind of what cable TV did on its own. There was BET, or there was Animal Planet, or there was Discovery Channel. Like, they did create sort of content communities. That maybe at issues areas. Is that you talked about moods, and sorry, John, I just got excited about this question, connecting with Tiffany before. Is that something that you see as an opportunity when you think about communities?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you mentioned Blacklight. He's one of the big creators on our platform. He's developed this whole universe around Route 47 interdimensional cable, right? And so whether or not that's your interest or my interest, Fred, like, he's got 125,000 followers on TikTok. Like, there is an audience out there for interdimensional cable that wants to engage with Route 47. And so we want that to reflect on Alchemy, is like, what's the best way on the big screen for that community, that audience, to consume the content. And then, of course, they're going to be using Discord and TikTok and everything else to round out that experience. And so we just want to find all those ways to support communities that want to interact around this content. Absolutely. And I think Blacklight's a great example, that creating a universe where people can just sort of lose themselves in that detail and in that creativity.
Interesting to think about how it stops being just passive and then it's engaging. John, sorry, you patiently were waiting for my long-winded question.
No, it's fine. Yeah, great presentation. My question is about
Mm,
sports content. I mean, in 2 months, we're going to have 750,000 people pass through Seattle. So
yeah,
I've got creators hanging on that. And if you kind of look at the universe of popular podcasts, newsletters, UGC and stuff, sports related content that runs from nonfiction all the way to Field of Dreams.
yeah.
Where would you place the some of those world building concepts you were talking about in the context of working with sports as a way of organizing audiences? Thanks.
Well, it's a really interesting question. I think there's so much that, I've seen some things recently about, hey, how can we take, nonfiction, so what's happening today in sports, and be smart about clipping that up and forming that into a daily narrative. Like, hey, John, here's your daily MLB update, right? About the players and teams you care about. Like, okay, that's really tactical, really short form. What I think could be interesting long term as you run that gamut is that, people attach to experiences, and right, so if you can immerse them in a place and time, so you mentioned Field of Dreams, if you could immerse them in that world with those characters, right, in as seamless a way as possible, like, that is what we're all trying to do with entertainment, is sort of forget about life for a while, right, suspend reality and be engaged. And I think you see this with Disney, extensions upon extensions from a core story, is people want to live it. They want to buy the Harry Potter wand. They want to be, in the midst of a town from one of their favorite movies. And so I think you can extend that to sports. And I think you could go deep on different historical events, different movies, different pockets of sports that just allow people to do that, go be themselves. And I think, we're seeing an incredible resurgence in like card collecting, like just immersing people in that world. I think any entertainment experience that can do that will be really interesting. And now there's tools coming out that can enable that.
Yeah, well, I'll finish with just with other markets like Japan. Sports as a manga category is
Mm,
gigantic
yeah,
because it is really bizarre triangulation of literature and sort of a gamer mentality to where you actually inhabit. And so my wife used to read Attack Number Nine. What a great title
yeah.
for volleyball because it let her be a volleyball player for a while. And that's one aspect where I think that there's a lot of potential traction. But thank you very much.
Absolutely. Great to meet you, John.
Hmm.
Thanks, John. I mean, maybe as we wrap, to sort of put a fine point on a little bit of this, you've alluded to the way you're programming. If today there's a call to action to sort of as people reach out to you, are there any subject areas, content communities, genres, sort of ways that people can look at literally what they're working on today and oh, this is what I should send Dan today? So, what would you focus on?
Oh man. I mean, more than anything, I think just creating the connection. I dropped my email in the chat. Please reach out if you're a creator that's looking to publish. We'd love to talk with you. If you're a viewer that just wants to experience it, we're looking for feedback. And so, one of the challenges of starting something from scratch is we have a two-sided network here, right? We're trying to get enough supply of content often enough that people have a reason to come back. And at the same time, the audience, has to like enough of the content that's up there. So we want to hear what people like to see and what they want to see more of. And that's the biggest way that I think we can help each other is like, let's help this audience get some distribution. At the same time, give us feedback so we can go get more of what everyone wants to see. And, we control the interface. So if there's other ways to sort the content, other ways to engage with it, other ways to promote you as a creator, like, please let us know. That's what we're building it for. And that's what we want to hear about, because I can take my best guess based on what I see in numbers. But at the end of the day, we're all just humans with needs. So we want to hear about those needs.
That's awesome. Look, we love seeing these growing moments and seeing other types of businesses, whether they're pick and shovel businesses or communication connecting businesses. It does show that we have a ripe space that's expanding. A lot of us are a part of it in different ways. Thank you for sharing ways people can reach you. Thanks everybody for helping us evolve into Riverside. This is a journey. Again, the final output's better for us. I know some people are struggling with getting up on stage, but we'll all build that muscle memory. Maybe we'll even have a little tutorial on how to invite yourself up on stage. But John, thanks for being today's guinea pig on that one. But awesome stuff. Look, between Tiffany and Daniel, I think we have such an amazing set of guests this week to show us the range of where creativity is going and where the opportunities are going. Thanks, as always, everybody, for joining. Thanks for tolerating my backdrop and hopefully loud kids in the background. They're all gone now. It's quieter now. But thank you all, and we're excited to see everybody next week, and have a good rest of your week this week. See everybody.
Thanks so much, Fred.